Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Data Breaches, where we cover 5 of the most interesting data breaches from this last week and one of our favorite bourbons. I'm Steve.
Michael.
Keegan.
Divya.
Shoo.
Great. Well,
Guess we're doing it in order of Austin and then Seattle. Sure.
I mean, we got to go in some order, and I don't think you're in the middle.
I don't want to be in the middle of that sofa.
Yes, you
It's slightly damp.
It's full of wild turkey.
Not my fault.
Well,
All right.
Divya, what do you have for us this week?
Okay, guys. For our first story today, we have Boston Children's Hospital that was attacked through their HVAC vendor that gave threat actor access to the hospital. During the first week of August, databreaches.net was contacted by a threat actor. What do you guys have to say about this?
Luckily, that's the first time anybody's ever used that vector of attack to compromise a further system, so shouldn't have seen that coming.
Whenever you hear HVAC, you think of the Target breach, right? Like
Immediately.
Target, 100 million credit cards stolen, the poster child of third-party risk. So you'd think anyone who has an HVAC vendor would. So definitely focus on the hackers as the perpetrators. There was a big announcement just a few days ago or a week ago. John Oliver covered it, where someone was like, if you're a hacker, now's the time to hit hospitals and hold them for ransom because they're super distracted. Mm-hmm. So obviously someone got the message and went after the Children's Hospital in Boston. Shame on you. And this is really not the time that we need children's hospitals to be hacked. Like hackers should, hackers generally don't attack Russia for obvious reasons. And then sometimes they don't go after hospitals and pipelines. And I feel like that's appropriate. I think we generally don't think of hackers as terrorists, but if you are attacking a children's hospital during a global pandemic, I could be persuaded to consider you a terrorist group, and then the government going to come after you.
Yeah, you got to be a different kind of asshole. There's a certain amount of looking the other way or leaving it up to individual corporations to protect themselves, which, given fuel supply and child safety, that probably won't fly in the future.
If you are going after a children's hospital and you're a hacker, don't be surprised if there's suddenly a drone strike in your general area, regardless of the country you reside in.
Or ransomware Batman.
We will talk about ransomware Batman later. And
he's not the hero that Gotham deserves. He's the hero that Gotham is.
Guys, let's move to story number 2.
I'm gonna pull your
So story number 2 is an interesting one because this is not really a news story. And this is about a platform that the University of Texas launched. It's called Lineup, where it's a hub for companies and individual requesters to find and contact Texas student athletes. They did use their personal emails. So Shu, what are your thoughts?
I will tell you my thoughts. I'm putting on some clothing here that has absolutely nothing to do with the story. So anyways, so this is the University of Austin threw up this site, and on this site, one of the things they did was to have direct contact information with their student athletes. This is across all sports. We're talking about football, of course, which is the biggest money maker, women's and men's basketball, women men's golf, women men's swimming. Whoever has decided to participate this has their Twitter account listed, their Instagram listed, and their email listed. Now, Twitter and Instagram, you can mute. It's not that important in the grand scheme of things, but personal email, this is not at utexas.edu email addresses. I'm looking at this, that it's at Gmail, at Yahoo, at iCloud. So it's safe to assume that these email addresses are being used by these student athletes across the board, and things like banking and anything that requires two-factor authentication. Now you may say, okay, this is just their email. They still need to get into that email system. Any attacker needs to get into that email system. With an email, you're halfway there. Like Yahoo, how many times have they been breached, right? So their breaches have been legendary. So you've given attackers at least halfway to identity theft for these student athletes. Some of them may become professionals, may become very rich and professional organizations who now have their personal email addresses.
I feel bad for the athletes, and there's no time like the present to teach all of these athletes the value of identity theft and digital identity monitoring, because they need it now. They are already targeted. Some of these athletes will become high net worth individuals, and this just starts the clock on when their identity is going to be targeted for theft. So this is a horrible event, and we hope nothing bad happens from it. But to safeguard against anything bad happening from it, I hope that the university is going to provide identity theft protection for the remainder of these athletes' lives.
Bourbon break.
Hey,
All
I think
right.
it's time for a bourbon break.
On that note,
And today we have
The Turk.
Wild Turkey 101. Like to give thanks to our sponsor, Wild Turkey Fear the Bird.
Gobble gobble.
Thank you for Matthew McConaughey and all of his continued support for HackNotice.com. Matthew McConaughey, large supporter of HackNotice.com. Wild Turkey 101, little known fact, it is 101 proof. They don't print that on the bottle. And it is evidently spicy.
Oh, it's spicy. All right.
Divya, can you tell us a little bit more about Wild Turkey 101?
Yes, I can.
Couldn't tell us in a turkey voice.
No.
I think let's talk about Wild Turkey 101.
All
So on the website, it says that the taste is sweet, bold, and smooth. And Steve, you were right about it being 101 proof, aged between 6 to 8 years. It's got a finish of a spice with an orange peel, and the aroma is of vanilla. Total Wine says that it's corn and waxy honey aroma with a deep chunk of earthy rye behind it, not overly sweet in the mouth, and it's a lean, almost leathery, leads to a long and strong finish where a spike of mint appears.
Leathery.
Wow. So Keegan and I have our NASA shot glasses with some Wild Turkey 101. And I'm definitely getting some spice and some vanilla on the nose.
Are you getting long and strong?
You know, I was surprised to hear it was aged 6 to 8 years, because usually you have to pay a premium for that level of aging. A lot of bourbons you buy these days are aged the bare minimum 2 years.
Oh,
2, yeah. Like bourbon, Kentucky straight bourbon, shoot, correct me if I'm wrong, it has to be aged for 2 years in Kentucky in
Yes.
virgin oak charred barrels, but that's it. So
Yeah. 6 to 8 years is a long time. That's pretty good.
that's a long time. And I will say for Wild Turkey, it is a smooth bourbon. It is a sharp bourbon. It is a spicy bourbon, but it's not like you get any of the astringencies or off flavors that you would get from some of these upstart bourbons that don't age for that long.
How's the leathery finish?
We'll try to taste the leathery finish here.
long. It's
Sharp alcohol, predominant spice. I mean, alcohol just hits you in the nose, right? But it's 101 proof. So like, if it didn't, then that would be weird. You know, spice, sharp, medium finish, you know, sweet but no predominant flavor. What'd you get, Keegan?
Definitely spice and sharp, and memories of younger days when wild turkey was a more regular staple for me. But yeah, it's sharp, but it's still drinkable. And that's probably the key characteristic of wild turkey for me. It definitely has some kick. It's spicy, and you really taste the alcohol, but you don't. It's smooth enough to still be drinkable straight.
I mean, it's clearly a rye. You taste the rye.
That's inherent in the spice though, right? In the mash.
Well, that's the spice. So that's where the spice comes from. So, you know, I think it is a solid bourbon to go with. If it's your well bourbon, then you're at a good bar. If it's a bourbon that you're drinking or mixing with, that makes a ton of sense. I think it'd be hard to do just straight, you know, even on the rocks, you might get tired of it. But I think for a mixer, or for, you know, a single glass, it's very approachable.
Anybody want to know what I'm drinking?
No.
What are you drinking? I care, Mike.
Yingling, new to North Texas. Cheers.
It's good stuff.
From New Jersey, Pennsylvania, anywhere around there. Cheers.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks to our sponsor, Wild Turkey 101, Wild Turkey 101. Fear the bird.
Hey guys, let's move on to story number 3. For story number 3, it's actually like a paired story because they go together. And it is the T-Mobile breach and AT&T. And T-Mobile was confirmed it affected over 54 million people, and their data was hacked, including social security numbers. AT&T right now is denying that it was breached, but there is a seller called Shiny Hunters claiming that they have a database of 70 million people. So what do you guys think about it? What do you guys think about like AT&T denying this?
All right, I have a lot of opinions on this one.
Mhm.
I use T-Mobile and I'm upset. I also use AT&T.
Yes.
So I'm upset doubly. And I know Shiny Hunters, and Shiny Hunters is active poster and like raid forums. And come on, guys, like raid forums exists. This exists for a long time. Why do we have to be like in an anonymous hacker forum? We all know it's raid forums. Anyway, Shiny Hunters has posted some bullshit and is selling this, and I don't think Shiny Hunters has ever posted something without actually having it. So like corporations protect client data, and hackers, shame on you.
It's more that they're in if mode and not in when mode. You know, if you have that many clients and you have their personal data, you need a plan. You need to know what you're going to do commercially to retain those customers when you have a data breach, not if you have a data breach. And we need to kind of address reality here, because a lot of those lawyers are still in deny mode.
Well, it's even worse than that, because we, and by we, I mean, I guess the American people or the world, have decided that cell phones are a good authentication device. I think that's a horrible fucking idea. And SIM cards are the dumbest thing in the world. And you can SIM swap someone and take over their identity in 10 minutes. And so you guess what they got from T-Mobile? They got all of my information. They got all of my billing information, and they got my unique SIM identifier.
Well, but why would they even SIM swap you when they could just port you out? They can go to Verizon and try to switch you over to Verizon, and Verizon's incented to help you with the transaction.
No, it's so much easier to SIM swap than to try to switch accounts. Like the information that a hacker has on me right now is enough information to swap my SIM. And it's super annoying. And I think ultimately you're either a public utility, which means that you have to be regulated like a public utility and you have to protect clients like a public utility, or we need to stop using cell phones, which are magical fun devices, for real authentication.
Stop using your magical fun devices for authentication.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but cell phones as a second factor is a dumb idea.
He's torn because he knows it's
I-
true, but his-
I will say that there is no perfect solution. It is, there's drawbacks to a software-based solution, cell phones, email. They're all kind of dumb.
So, well, hold on. A SIM, which can be changed by T-Mobile tech support,
Yeah,
should not be the thing you own.
yeah. I mean, you're right in that
No.
aspect. There's drawbacks with everyone, and there is no perfect solution. So
Well,
I would say that even
I
two-factor
would
authentication.
agree that there's something you know, a password, something you have, which in this case is a phone, which is dumb. And then something you are, which is biometrics. The something you have should be a security device where an entry-level customer support should not be able to switch.
Correct. Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Stop.
That is very true.
If it's something you have, it should be a security device. We don't use.
But Authy is key to your specific device. I mean, Authy is an exception.
No. This is about SMS.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on
SMS multi-factor is entirely dependent on the SIM.
Yeah. If the
Yeah.
something you have is your number, that's bullshit. If the something you
But
have is your device.
that's what this
it's
is all about.
it's a
It can be
physical
on
code.
Reddit got broken into because SIM swapping.
Yeah.
So many companies got broken into because of SIM swapping. SIM swapping is real because one, SMS is bullshit to begin with, it's unencrypted. And then two, you can swap a SIM like that. And so if it's something you have, it should be a security device. We use keys, which are security devices, to go into doors. We don't use sandwiches, right? Like I own a sandwich, so now let me in the door. This is what we're effectively doing with SIM swapping.
I might let somebody in the door if they have.
Also,
Also, get on it, Salesforce.
but story number 4 is about Microsoft. So there were like over 1,000 web apps by my 38 million records were exposed. And that included contact tracing information that is like if you got vaccinated, etc. So what do you guys have to say about this one?
Look, that's super dangerous because there's a bunch of people that don't believe that COVID is real and they're hunting people down and saying, I know where you live. And so if there's anyone that's at all involved in COVID and your information gets exposed, you have a heightened danger to you. And so I think that there's a duty and a responsibility to protect people that are on the front lines of protecting against this pandemic. So it's super scary. Anything having to do with the pandemic or contact tracing or who's involved in that work, that should be super secret information.
This is contact tracing. You're implying that you have geolocation data on people, where they went and where they've been on everything. It's now all out there.
Yep.
I think a very interesting quote from this. First of all, it's also the MTA was listed as a victim, which I thought was kind of funny. But there was an interesting quote on there. Security default settings matter. This is not an S3 default setting breach, but it kind of was. So
was it Azure's version of S3?
this is, I think it's like Google Apps version. I don't know what the Amazon version is, but
Well,
yeah,
it's
this is.
Microsoft, right?
Microsoft, yeah.
So-
Guys, so for story number 5, this is actually a HackNotice story, which is pretty exciting.
Woo!
And HackNotice got an alert yesterday that Ragnarok, which is a ransomware gang, it decided to give up and change the website and leave like a public master decryptor. And it was covered by Bleeping Computer later on, and we gave them the information as to how many victims were in there. So what was your thought process about that?
All right, so here's what happened. We go through a process, and Shu can attest. where every ransomware gang that discloses, we build a scraper for them, no matter how shitty their website looking at you, Lockbit, or how few disclosures they have. And Ragnarok leak site, not to be confused with Ragnarok, not to be confused with Ragnar ransomware. We had 12 different disclosures from them. And so yesterday I was minding my own business, checking what was coming in from the hundreds of scrapers we've built. And I saw this weird thing that said decrypt. I was like, decrypt, that's weird. That's not a company. Let me figure out what this is. And I think it was decrypt / Bangkok. Don't ask me why it said Bangkok. It was just, it was, and so I go into the dark net, you know, go through the matrix, and I go to the site. And so I remember the Ragnarok leak site was a fairly well-styled site. It looked fairly good compared to other ransomware sites. They had deleted everything. They deleted all of their sites they're holding for ransom. They posted one thing called decrypt, and then you click into it, and it's just a decrypt.exe saying, put in your _ID and we'll decrypt everything. And so I started looking around. I'm like, this is weird. It looks like they gave up and they just released a universal decryptor, which has happened before. So ransomware sites sometimes give up, and they sometimes release a universal decryptor. We have a theory as to why that is, and it's ransomware Batman. So there's a guy.
This has taken a distinctly shoe-like turn.
There's a guy.
It's way off more than shoes. Shoe is more.
Or girl,
on track.
guy or girl, who we call ransomware Batman, who is hacking into ransomware groups, releasing their decryptor and like destroying the group, or threatening them with something horrible until they do the same. And so Ragnarok, they released a universal decryptor. We were the first to find it. No one else was talking about this. And so we were able to break the news, contact people in ransomware industry,
Media.
let them well, media, but also our friends who helps companies with ransomware, contact people that help with ransomware issues, and let them know that there's a universal decryptor. And so we were able to break the news on Ragnarok, effectively giving up the ghost. So that was yesterday. There's a lot of fun things that happened yesterday, and then there was this. Would love to hear what people think about yet another gang giving up the ghost.
I mean, there's certainly not a pattern. I think that this one was a little bit, hastier than some of the other departures we've seen. Would you characterize it that way?
It was weird. So
Yeah.
usually when ransomware gangs give up, they have a manifesto.
They do PR.
And they're like,
yeah,
they have a swan song of why they're leaving.
we made enough money. Here you go.
Right.
Like Joker stash quit, you know, and it was like, we made enough money.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the last 8 years of service. Peace out. And there was
Yeah.
a fun little image to go with it. I mean,
Right.
the funny
Yeah.
thing about Ragnarok was it seemed like they had erased all their images, provided nothing, and just posted the keys.
This was the effective digital version of leaving the house with dinner still on the stove.
Yeah, it's weird.
They deleted everything, all styles, all CSS, any incriminating evidence. They posted a decryptor, and then they ran.
Bugged out. Yeah.
So so if you look at the people they had hit up for ransom, it did include a Taiwanese company. It included several European companies. But I noted, so it's rare to see a China or Taiwan-based ransom. And my working theory was, and that was, I believe, their most recent ransom was Taiwan. And the gut reaction was the long arm of China started coming after them, and they had to get out of Dodge.
We actually talked about this, I think, like 2 Bourbon breaches ago. We see a lot of, it's not like an SEC filing. We don't know who the board of directors for Ragnarok are and how they move around. We do often see these gangs rebranding. It's like sort of a band, right? So we see some members basically splitting off and forming their own gang later. So I would caution, this is not like necessarily a thing that we can celebrate and let our guard down, because chances are pretty good some people affiliated are going to start their own thing.
I would challenge that, because when ReEvil rebranded to Dark Matter, Black Matter. No, it's a Matter.
I think it's Black Matter.
Black
Matter.
I think so.
When they rebranded to Black Matter, they did not release a universal decryptor.
Correct. Yes.
So it is something to celebrate. Whenever there is a universal decryptor, and by the way, an analyst looked at the decryptor, figured out that they were so shitty at writing code, there was a bug in their decryptor preventing the decryption.
Oh, no. Yeah, these decryptors, it's not uncommon to see all these things. Like there was one decryptor that was released. It could only, the Colonial Pipeline one. That was, yeah. You had to feed one file at a time into that decryptor. That's useless.
That's not part of the business model. That's like expecting a gunfighter to carry around a first aid kit. Like that's tertiary at best.
So you're right, Shu, that Colonial Pipeline paid, and the whole issue was the decryptor was too slow. This decryptor, I think it decrypted some files, but if it was a 64-bit file, it just fucked up some shit. And so that's the technical term. It fucked up some shit. 32 bits of shit were fucked up. And so like the problem was that their decryptor was so hastily made that it had bugs in it. And
don't expect decryptors and encryptors to be very sophisticated software, because 100% of these things, the ransomware gang is just using a known library, implanting their software, and they're using it. This is not sophisticated software to write at all.
I feel like some emergency happened, and they were forced by Ransomware Batman to make a universal decryptor. And they made it so fast that they just included some bugs. This has been an incredibly short 13-minute Bourbon and Breaches, where we talked about 3 stories and covered 1 bourbon. Thank you for your patronage, Wild Turkey. And if you enjoyed what you saw today, well, then you're probably not watching at this point.
Or Ransomware Batman.
Yeah, or your Ransomware Batman. Yeah. Thank you, Ransomware Batman, for all that you do. We don't deserve you. If you have a bourbon or a breach you would like us to cover, you can contact us at contact@hacknotice.com. Until next time.